Get future ready.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Priyanka Chandani from Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, and I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar on topic Convergence of Technology with Industry. And I hope everyone is doing great today. Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology is one of the premier engineering and management institutes of Uttar Pradesh, and proud to say that it is the only institute in UP to be recognized by all three ranking and accrediting government organizations. We are sixth program NBA accredited, NAC A grade, and NIRF ranked. So dear all, you are a part of webinar series titled Career Series 2020 happening at NIT during this month and in the month of August. Our aim is to facilitate the students to plan their career aspirations and goal in the light of current happenings in IT world. Now, before I introduce our distinguished speaker, I would like to go over a few items for all of you to know. So everybody's on mute. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write in the chat box and we'll be addressing them towards end of the session. Also, we can take care of them in between the session. If we don't get to answer your questions during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow it up afterwards. The session is also being live streamed on YouTube and Facebook, and we have good number of audience there who are following us on social. I welcome you all on behalf of NIT. I would suggest everyone to kindly subscribe and follow NIT on social for getting updates on upcoming events. So now I'm pleased to introduce our today's speaker, Mr. Satish Kumar Srivastava, Head of Offers and Propositions and Head of Architects at Sopra Steria India. As part of proposition, he helps conceptualize and develop new offers and propositions which helps clients to adopt and excel at digital transformation. The propositions he's currently working on pertain to next generation applications management, leveraging artificial intelligence in software engineering, application management for SaaS, contactless identity verification, voice-enabled service and transactions. He is also responsible for providing right technical thought leadership and supervision to complex client engagements. Prior to this, Mr. Satish has undertaken the roles as Head of Solutioning and Head of Product Engineering in Steria India Limited. Before that, he also founded cloud, mobile integration practices for cyber. Prior to that, he worked with Infosys Technologies, playing various roles in engineering and commercials. He has led many enterprise accounts and contributed to converting 10% of Infosys revenue to non-linear pricing models. He is a BTech from IIT Kanpur 1997 batch and has done management development program from IIM Ahmedabad. So thank you for joining us today, Mr. Srivastava. I'm sure the students are excited to hear from you. So it is, dear participants, it is a golden opportunity to widen your knowledge on new age technologies and its convergent with industry. So please listen carefully and it shall help you in nurturing your growth plan and decide your future. So we can start the session. Over to you.
Thanks, Priyanka. That was a long introduction. Thank you. I'm just projecting my screen. Hope this is visible now.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to start with this quote, which I came across during my engineering days, and then I became a fan of Mr. Tesla. He's the old Tesla who invented electricity. The quote is in front of you. The present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine. And the new Mr. Tesla, Mr. Elon Musk, also is a great inspirational personality, and I follow him a lot. I suggest the students who are basically entering the engineering or are in engineering, he should also Mr. Elon Musk, very inspiring personality. Now, coming to this, our talk, convergence of technology and industry. Now, industry, as the word suggests, is so for example, we have film industry. Now, film industry is about businesses related to movie production. Now, we are here talking about IT industry, which means collection of all the businesses which use IT in some way or other, and there is a plethora of such business. So, for example, IT is used in banks. For example, IT is used in hospitals, in the oil and gas industry, in the manufacturing plant, in the retail shop, and so on. So I've just depicted the some pictures of the businesses where IT has applicability. And if I summarize that picture, so each of those business uh, pertain to certain business domains. Now, this is the classification which is there on the left side. So you have manufacturing domain, you have financial services domain. Now, in manufacturing domain, you will have, for example, car manufacturing, for example, utensils manufacturing, for example, aircraft manufacturing. All sorts of manufacturing basically fall in the manufacturing domain. FS, financial services, banks, insurance, and so on, healthcare, hospitals, and so on. Government services, you have Aadhaar. So all the IT which is for the government, that comes in government services. Now, the essence of what I'm talking about is that IT has the applicability in all the businesses which we are seeing around the world, and all the businesses are classified into these domains: manufacturing, FS, healthcare, utilities. By utilities, I mean that uh, so you have the utility services at home, for example, water, for example, electricity. Now there is a whole lot of IT, and IoT is part of it. IoT has a lot of applicability in utilities. So they all go basically behind these domains. Now, supporting all these businesses, we have business process. Now, business process can be depicted or can be written in some sort of diagram like this. So you have boxes in which we write business logic, and then we have boxes, different boxes connected to each other. Uh, Typically, businesses will have departments. For example, we will have HR department, finance department, marketing department, and they are common to all business. So, for example, if I take an example of a business. Now, in retail, I mean, all shops are retail shops. So, if I have a, for example, ice cream shop, now, in ice cream shop, if it's a slightly bigger ice cream shop, so I will hire employees for that. So I will need to have some sort of compensation policy, some sort of, somebody wants to take holiday, so some sort of holiday policy, and so on. So I will need to have some sort of HR policy in place. Ice cream shop will also deal in finance. So, for example, I will buy the raw material from somewhere. So I have to give the cost, and I will sell ice cream. So I will basically need to have revenue. And then, if as long as revenue is exceeding cost, my business is profitable. Marketing. So I will need to advertise that, okay, so this is the greatest ice cream I have, and so on. So I think the essence of this is that all businesses uh, belonging to each of these domains will have some departments working for that business which supports that business. Now, each of these departments or each of these business processes within these departments uh, will be supported by information systems. And roughly, if I break an information system, at the core of it, I will have data. So, for example, for ice cream shop example, I will need to have what sort of ice creams I have, who are the suppliers for it, what should be the pricing, what is the pricing for it. So, these are all the data related to that business. And with data comes the business logic. So this sort of ice cream I will not sell in this country in this season or in the city in this season. And I mean, some business logic will be there, and there will be a user interface where using which I will be, or the users will be interacting with this information system. Now, what are the roles which go into developing these information systems? So roles are business analyst, who's very conversant about the business. Role is solution architect, developer, tester, and support engineer. we can so these are basically the roles which are related to, or which are responsible for conceptualizing these business process, supporting information system, and the component within this information system. However, let me take a step back and let me basically let's think about the business first, and we will realize that businesses are something which is very old. So when we say industry, now industry is probably more than 10,000 years ago. So 10,000 साल पहले agriculture शुरू हुआ था. So when agriculture had started, so before that there was a hunter gatherer society, right? So hunter gatherer means that bunch of 30 people, 35 people, they all live together. They go out in the jungle, they hunt, they gather fruits and berries, and then that's how they live their living. About 10,000 years ago, agriculture started. So that is when people, so if you own a land and if you are not able to basically cultivate in the land, you will need to have some employment there. So with employment comes the employment contracts, that okay, if you till this land for a year, this is how much I will pay. And when the contract comes, uh, uh, so then basically the contract disputes also come. And when the contract dispute comes, so then that's when the need for the higher authority to basically judge, pass the judgment between these contract dispute, that also comes. So society started becoming very, very complex suddenly after the advent of agriculture. And when you have agriculture, so some people have grains and some people do not have grains, so they want to basically exchange whatever they have, barter system, with the grain. So from there comes barter system, from there comes the concept of money, and with money comes the concept of bank. uh, the concept of manufacturing also was there, because wars are as old as probably human beings. So large scale war, for example, the one which was fought, I mean, 2300 years ago, and there were wars, I mean, before that also, that those wars must have entailed large scale manufacturing, because you need to have those mining industry to give you the ores or the metal. You need to have the manufacturing industry to basically build your sword and shield, etc., etc. So businesses are very, very old. Businesses have been supporting human beings by giving basically value added services. So for example, distribution service for agricultural crops, for example, manufacturing services to build your weapons and swords, etc. For example, money related financial services, giving loans for buying seeds, etc. So businesses are in existence since thousands of years ago. With businesses, the business enablers, as we spoke about, the contract, employment contract, etc. So those are also very, very old. The first public body of knowledge, Nalanda University, is 1,600 years old. 1,600 years old. So this is the photograph of the contract between a government, Swedish government, and the corporate which undertook a task for the Swedish government. And Hammurabi trade laws go, I mean, thousands of years ago. So the essence. So what I'm trying to convince you about is that businesses are very, very old. However, IT is very new. So when we talk about IT, our time horizon is restricted to 50 years, 60 years. When I talk about business, our time horizon is 10,000 years ago. So that is the basically difference between business and IT. Now, first laptop, which all of us have, is basically invented in 1980s. First PC in 1975. So we are talking about basically very, very recent phenomena historically. So now this is the kind of a depiction of the traditional IT and business relationship. So if I say businesses are very old, so they are in the power, they know what needs to be done, they know what value we need to provide to the larger society. IT is a new guy on the block. IT basically is about supporting business whenever, wherever they can. So they are kind of an order taker. So they are at the beck and command of business that, okay, this needs to be done, this needs to be automated, so let me do that. So the essence of what I'm trying to say here is uh, IT guys, even though they had some business orientation, and this is about traditional IT business relationship, they had some business orientations, they had some business knowledge, but they were basically about supporting business. They were not about deciding what needs to be done. That used to happen, say, till a decade ago. It's so uh, but from from that this picture to wherever we are, uh, the IT growth has been deceptively fast. So from the advent of IT, which was about say 50 years ago, IT has risen in importance at an exorbitant pace. So if you read some of these quotes here, uh, so so here this is a statement from Mr. Watson, who's the chairman of IBM, and he said that there is a world market of maybe just 5 computers. Now this is coming from IBM, the boss of IBM. There is a popular magazine. There used to be a popular magazine which said that computers in future can weigh no more than 1.5 tons. Similarly, Bill Gates, now he's a respected personality even in the modern IT world. He said that 640 KB ought to be enough for anybody. Uh, Digital equipment, so that company basically merged into something else later on, but they said that there is no reason anybody should want a computer at their home. So even from the IT industry perspective, the stalwarts and the leaders of IT guys also could not foresee how fast the IT growth had been, and it has been so fast that it has totally disrupted how businesses were run also. So traditionally, historically, if you own a taxi company, you would obviously own taxis. uh, but now these are the examples of the companies which are very, very big, very, very large companies, but they don't own the core assets which they are famous for. So for example, Uber, don't own any taxi. It's a taxi company. Airbnb is an accommodation provider, but they don't have any real estate at all. Skype is a phone company. I mean, you can have voice calls, etc., but they don't have any telco infrastructure, and so on. So, so what is important to realize is that after the advent of IT, which is the new block in the new kid in the block, uh, it has totally disrupted how the business had been running historically. So, last 20 years has seen those lot of transformation. Uh, Now, this is a slightly dense slide. So before that, are there? I mean, if there are any questions, uh, Priyanka, so then maybe I can take these up. Otherwise, maybe I can proceed, and then after a logical point, I can take it up.
Okay, so we have got few queries. We can take one or two questions right now.
Mhm.
Uh, First question which we can take is this industry has changed dramatically in past 5 years. So what do
Yeah,
you think will happen in next 5 to 10 years?
that's a good one. Now, now there are now the change has been so fast, Priyanka. Uh, in last 10 years, that there is a group called Future Institute in US. So that group said that in 2030, uh, 85% of the IT jobs are those jobs which do not exist now. So the disruption is likely to continue. Now we see a lot of jobs here. So for example, data science scientist is a job which was not existing 5 years ago. Now similarly, next 10 years also there will be plethora of those jobs, lot of those jobs जो कि अभी exist नहीं करती हैं. Now, how do we prepare for that? That is something which uh, I mean, that becomes the real question. How do we prepare ourselves for the uncertainty? Uh, because there is no certainty in the future. I mean, at least in the IT field, because there is so much of disruption, and because there is so much of actually money to be made. And right now, in top 50 Fortune companies, there are so much fraction of companies. I mean, so much lot of percentage of companies which belong to IT. Now, how do we take those uncertain? I mean, how do we prepare for the uncertain future is something which I think all of us need to ask ourselves. And so that answer is pretty simple. The fundamentals have not changed. The fundamentals of IT has not changed. So IT is still about basically computing. IT is still about programming language. IT is still about data. The IT is still about how do we basically transform the data, change the data to something useful. There are now, Priyanka, maybe I can take this slide in context of your question, and then maybe we can answer it better. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So here, so this slide actually depicts the changes which have come about in last whatever 50 odd years. So when IT had started, so that was so 1960s is when the mainframes computers had come. So the focus was on, so let's do for business whatever mainframes is capable of. Now mainframes were capable of storing data and performing some processing, batch process. So there were a lot of basically batch processes, etc. And those batch processes was basically used for automation, whatever was important for mainly banking industry and mainly for government. So it was a very limited scope for IT, so that went on till 1980s and mid 1980s. Now, starting 90s, so that is when processes were becoming important in the businesses, and computers were basically in that shape that and the business knowledge also basically became more grew the business analysis part, so that became strong, and that is where the ERP, that uh, age of ERP came, which lasted for 15-20 years. It's still going on, but now new implementations of ERP are hard to come by. So that is when the focus was on process. Uh, uh, so here also the focus was not on people, but I mean, starting 2000, the focus, I mean, and this is the overarching trend I'm talking about. So all the uh, technology trends which we are seeing for 2000, I mean, in last 20 years. So for example, mobile, for example, analytics, for example, social, for example, semantic web and all that. So here the focus broadly is on people. Now, some of these trends are the enabler trends. So, for example, cloud is an enabler trend, and some of these trends are driver trends. So, for example, they are pushing those. For example, they are pushing Google, they are pushing Facebook. So, they are pushing the overall industry forward, and in that push, in order to deliver uh, whatever, I mean, Google needs to deliver that search engine. So those are the enabler trends. So now, if I extend it to say next 10 years, so some of these trends will still persist, and some of these trends would have died off. So for example, things like cloud, they are here to stay. I mean, there are so many businesses who are still not on cloud, and there are so many businesses who are still not basically using cloud to their full potential. So analytics similarly, big data. So some of these trends will basically persist for next 5 to 10 years, and there will be some, I mean, more trends which would have come about. Okay. Any other question, Priyanka?
Mm, We can
or
have
maybe.
one question. Okay, we can take one question.
Mhm.
Which jobs shall be most in demand in future?
So now, uh, so when we start our career, so that is when the so and in IT specifically, when we start our career in IT, the job which is in most demand, whatever is the trend, whatever is the background trend which is going on, is that of coding, is that of the basic understanding of, for example, data structure, programming language, uh, basic subject matter expertise of cloud, big data, and so on. So the jobs will still be those jobs. I mean, the subject matter expertise involved in those jobs, those entry level jobs, will still be about basically how mobile, so Android, iOS, will still be about distributed computing, cloud, and so on. However, once we spend some time, I mean, in that job, in the developer's job, so that is where I think people start basically shifting towards the business side as well. Uh, so that business depends on whatever is the business model, which is, I mean, in fashion right now. So I think to answer your question, the jobs of future will still be the development job, will still be that of designer's job, will still be that of solution architect job. But where this particular uh, uh, coding and design and architecture is being applied, so those solution would have been possibly different, but the building block will still be the things which are there in the screen. Okay, so
Okay,
let me move on.
great.
Yeah.
So you have basically answered two of our queries. One, Miss Himani has also asked the same question. IT industry is more than coding now. So how is the job market growing nowadays? So I think you very well answered that. So thank you for your answer. Now we can continue with the session.
Sure. So here in next couple of slide, what I've attempted to do is that uh, the trends which you are seeing, the trends which are on from last 10 to 20 years, how have they come about? And basically, what is the relevance of this in the larger picture? Uh, so when the and all these trends are related to actually rise of internet. So internet is something which started in, so for example, in 1999 I used to use a text based browser which used to resemble a lot like a Unix screen. So that was called links. So 1999 I used to use a
Hello, Mr. Srivastava. We can't hear you. I think there is a loss of connection from our speaker side. Uh, let's wait for a while. Dear participants, our speaker is joining us back. We'll resume the session in another 2 minutes.
Priyanka,
Yes,
hello.
Mr. Srivastav, I can see you back.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, there was a
It's okay. That's
slight
fine.
problem here. Let me share it back. Okay. So so essence of this slide is that when internet started, there was problem of how do we search internet, and there were actually a couple of companies which started doing it. That was in early 2000. So Google was one company, and the other company was from India, which was Khooj.com. Now, Khooj.com could not solve the problem of how do we search internet because data became so hard, so huge. Google solved it, and Google became what it is now, and Khooj.com nobody remembers. And how did Google solve that problem of searching the internet? They invented technology big data. Now, big data in the form they invented about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is now very different than what we already did. But that was the starting of the big data technology, which was about basically distributed computing. So, how do I solve a large problem or a large workload? How do I take care of a large workload using the set of connected computers, and assuming that any of those computers can fail anytime. So that was a new technology at that time, and Hadoop is what they invented then. And now we have plethora of such, a lot of such technologies on Hadoop, on big data side. So big data
Mr.
came about
Srivastav,
for solving how do I search. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think you'll have to share your slides again. We can't see your screen.
Oh, okay. 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 Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay, just hang on for a second. Let me change
Yeah,
my network again.
not a problem. We can see it now.
Okay. No, but let me change it because I think so I'm just using my, so let me come back on the broadband.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me move on. Uh, so when when data became very large, so then there was a problem of how do we make sense of that data? So how do I basically derive insights from it? What is that data saying? So that is where, and Amazon, that problem is related to classical statistics as well as there are newer algorithms like machine learning and deep learning. But Amazon was kind of the first companies which had to face that problem, and they basically did a lot of things on analytics side in terms of basically providing the industry with use cases which are successful use cases of the analytics. Similarly, AR VR is a technology which is coming up now. AR VR is augmented reality and virtual reality. So, for example, when I went to Keen University in UK, so that is the use case which they were exploring was that they had to train medical students who will soon become a doctor. And that training they were giving through virtual reality. So there was a virtual hospital where they could basically interact with dummy patients there, which had the real problems in terms of diseases, etc. They could interact with it, etc. So that's how they were training the rookie medical students using VR. AR also has a lot of use case in the industry. For example, if you have to repair a aircraft and you have a junior repairman with you, so you can assist him. So he can wear a glass or he can wear some sort of basically screen, and on that screen will come the instructions for repairing it, and that screen will identify what sort of component that repairman is looking at and so on. And maybe next step in these digital interactions are the holograms. Uh, Now, when the amount of processing became large on the internet, and our computers as well as the servers were incapable of basically handling that processing power, so there came the need for basically cloud technology. So instead of using very large servers, and very large servers become very costly, prohibitively expensive. So that is where the cloud came in picture. And we could so using cloud, we can have basically collection of virtual machines and collection of computers or servers, basically all working together to basically run your use case. And the pricing also was changed so that it is not very expensive for the small business, and that is the reason for the popularity for cloud. So in cloud, there are several different models. So you can rent the infrastructure, you can rent the software. The renting the infrastructure is called infrastructure as a service. Renting the software is called software as a service, and so on. Social networking. So Facebook obviously became a phenomena, and the premise of the Facebook was, and it's a mathematical premise, is that any person who's connected with the internet are separated by 6 degrees of separation. So there are only 5 links which exist between any two people in the world if they are connected with the internet. And using that principle, so Mark Zuckerberg started off basically writing some code for connecting with the fellow college mates, and this basically went on to become a phenomena. IoT is another one which is coming up very very fast, and it is because of the such a huge progress which has been made on the hardware side, on the sensor side. Some of the use cases are, for example, and this is something which we had also worked on from our company's perspective. Now, health of the school kids. Uh, Now, there are health of the school kid is directly related to their performance. So, using sensors, how do we collectively figure out who are the healthy? I mean, who are the folks who are getting good sleep and basically good activity level, etc., etc. Driverless car is another good use case. So so what am I saying here? Uh, so here, even though business used to be very powerful uh, earlier, and IT guys were the order taking guys earlier, but now we have companies like Google, Facebook. Now their primary product which they are selling is the IT product. So Google has the product which is search engine, which is the IT product. Facebook has a product which is a website. It's a social platform. Amazon has a web product, is a technology product. Tesla has a product which I mean looks like a mechanical one, which is car, but it is actually a computer which is car. It is connected with its ecosystem. It's connected with the network, with the servers all the time. LinkedIn, Netflix, they all have basically IT products. So now there is a new breed of businesses which are coming and which have already come about. Uh, and what they are selling is essentially technology products. So it is now the relationship between business and technology is totally changed. Now it is the technology which is driving the business. It is not the other way around. Having said that, now business obviously is still important because those guys are the guys who basically put money and take all the risk. But in the boardrooms, in the senior leadership, it is the IT guys who are basically having to contribute meaningfully as well as control that conversation. So, for example, in Tesla's boardroom, now uh, it is a profit loss discussion obviously, but they are also discussing about what should be the size of battery, how do we prepare better batteries, because that is what as well as the cloud conversation, because that is what is the differentiator for them. Because if they solve that problem, for example, when Google solved that problem of search, it became Google. So similarly, if Tesla solves that battery problem, so it becomes Tesla. So these are the problems which are being discussed at the board level, and these are so hence now it is the IT guys, it is the technology guys, it is the technical folks, and the leadership position in that stream. So they are driving the business forward. And I think it is an exciting time to be entering the IT field, because uh, now that traditional relationship of IT and business has totally changed. Now uh, it is the exciting time to build a career in IT and help the business as well as help the larger society. So. Uh, so this is so Priyanka, this is what I had put together. Happy to take any questions or directly from the students, or basically if you collected them.
Mm. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. This has been such an interesting talk, and I am sure that students will have a lot of takeaways for the future growth in the industry. So, I do have some questions, so we can take them. One question is, it's like the students are from different background. So, what do you think? What all challenges they face when they step into their professional career, and how do they tackle these problems, these challenges?
That's a good one. So if I go back to this slide, so for example, this slide, and here so here what I'm talking about is the roles which are related for building the information system. uh, Now here if you look at it, and it's not probably very apparent in the way I've written it, but when you join the company, you what is important from uh, the value addition which you bring to the company is your actually IQ. And if I at a high level, if I summarize what is important for people as they move up the hierarchy, at the entry level it is the IQ which is important. And so you join as a developer, it is the subject matter expertise of the technology which you bring in that becomes your basically most important thing. Later on, it is the EQ, the emotional quotient, which becomes more important. So when you are working as part of the team, how are you basically? What kind of discipline you have? How good is your anger management? How is your are you being lazy? Are you taking initiative? Are you proactive? So those are the soft skills which are more important. Having said that, as a developer also, communication skill is something which is important, because having technical knowledge is not enough, but being able to express it also is very important. So I would say subject matter expertise is important, and that is something which people from all background level can have, because subject matter expertise is logged inside the book. So people from all background, as long as they have access to books, as long as they have access to basically good teachers, good universities, subject matter expertise is something which is easy to get. I mean, it is between them and the books and the teachers. That's it. Uh, Now after that, communication skill is something which everybody will need to work on, and it is, I think, initial for initial several years in the enterprise, you are communicating to your friend, your teammates, who are essentially your friends. So communication skill also is important, but you are dealing with your peers more. It also becomes basically more and more important as you grow up, but there are basically, you put on number of years of experience, it is easy to learn. And uh, after EQ, what is later on important is your social quotient. So how you are able to influence others, and how you are basically able to influence, for example, the your stakeholders in different companies, your stakeholders in suppliers, vendors, clients, and so on. So it is the chain of uh, IQ is important, then EQ becomes important, and then SQ becomes important. People from all the social background will have these components. I mean, because I mean, no matter what is the language which they are using at home, no matter what is the financial background, I think these are the things which people can get easily. So I don't think the social background and the economic background, etc., is such a big hindrance as long as people are able to get access to good education.
That's right. This is so insightful. Thanks for the answer. We can take another question. It says one of our participant has asked, how can the student have better reach in the industry and which core skills they should concentrate on? And similar type of question I have got from Mr. Deel Kamal also on this platform, that in this changing scenario of engineering, what skills of core branch you think are more required by the industry from students' part?
So let me take the first one first. I mean, how do we have greater reach in the industry? You said, sorry.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now this is uh, now. So for example, if I basically take my example, so I also come. I mean, start. I'm from a very humble background. The first uh, English knowledge which I had read uh, was after when I got selected in IT and IIT, and that is, I mean, that is when I had 2 months break in terms of. So there were a couple of months notice period when I had to join the college, and that is when I read my first English book, which was a novel from Jeffrey Archer, Cain and Abel. And I took about 20 days in reading it. I basically wrote a lot of word meaning, etc. And after that, I went into IIT, and that was a good college. So I had basically access to a lot of reading material, a lot of good friends, a lot of basically good teachers. So when I entered the industry, I entered as a developer, and using the skills, the social skills and the technical skills which you learn uh, in your college days. I mean, you apply all that, and then you build your network, and that is when you basically come to know about different opportunities. However, so that is the organic way of finding your own reach in the industry. You join a company, you build your network, you build friends, and through the friends, you basically come to know about it. And but there is I mean, from the top-down way perspective, now this slide summarizes. So you can, so anybody can research on what are the, I mean, mobility, for example, or mobile technologies, which are the good companies which are working in mobile technologies, and you can go to their websites, you can figure out what kind of business they are in. You can also contact them. You can basically uh, if now each of these most of these companies are also willing to give projects to the students as interns. So I mean, you take those opportunities and you figure out what is your interest area, you identify the company, and then you basically pick up on there. Once you get a project or opportunity to work in a company, so then your work basically shows, and you develop relationship, and then you basically capitalize on those relationship to move forward. I think that is the, I mean, another top down way to build the reach in the industry. I mean, does that answer the question?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
this answer has definitely given us more clarity.
Yeah.
So one question which I ask to all our speakers, what piece of advice would you like to give to youngsters who want to head start their professional education?
Okay. Now there is a book which I've recently read, uh, which is from Dr. Cal Newport, and the book's name is Deep Work. And that the what the book says is that there are two types of work which we essentially do in our lives. So one is shallow work, one is deep work. Now, deep work is something where we are using all our senses and all our attention power, and basically we are dedicated for doing that. So, for example, when I was, for example, learning calculus in my 11th class or 12th class, so I was doing deep work. When I was first time studying the statistics, I was doing the deep work. So, and he goes on explaining at length about what are the characteristics, etc. And then he says that what are the shallow work. For example, when I'm eating, for example, a mango, when I'm driving. So now these are the things which I can do without putting a lot of focus also on it. So I think as a student, number one, we need to uh, choose what we want to become, what are we want to, I mean, what career path we want to take, and then basically maximize our time doing the deep work in that field. So study hard, not study shallow. So that is one thing. So maximizing the amount which we are spending in doing the deep work, not shallow work, because that is what gives the true value addition to our knowledge base and as well as our experience. Second thing is that I think now technology, as it applies to society and as it applies to businesses, is something which is very good, and we have to do that. But there are also forms of technology which are so. For example, now with smartphone comes games as well, and when you start playing games, so then basically you tend to spend a lot of time in just playing games. Now these are sort of traps which I think one should not fall in. Uh, and actually, Dr. Newport also emphasizes this point in another book of his, and he says that living a minimalistic life, but pursuing a higher goal, is something which is good. Uh, Now there is a big industry, for example, of gaming which glamorizes gaming, but I think people tend to, and I think I mean students or people at that age group tend to fall in trap and then spend disproportionate time. So I think to summarize, uh, keep away from distractions. Uh, so, and the social media and the gamings, they are big distractions, and why they are advertised so much is because those businesses may have vested interest in advertising, glamorizing games. Keep away from distractions, indulge in deep work, and shallow work is something which which you are doing anyways. So there is no need to basically focus on that. Maximize deep work, keep away from distraction. I think these are the two things which I would say, Priyanka. A long answer to your short question, sorry.
No, no, thank you so much. So I think from students' perspective, I'm sure it is very knowledgeable advice which can help them to take right decisions. So Mr. Srivastav, I have got one more question on our social. So if you can answer him, he's saying, Mr. Dil Nawaz Ahmad. He's saying, sir, I want to do MBA in finance stream. So, what is the future in finance sector? If you can answer that, and he wants to go to banking sector. So, if any, you can throw some light on the job profile, he'll get some idea.
Okay. So, just to contextualize this in the framework which I had built here. So, when you say finance, so you are actually talking about and when you say MBA in finance, you are talking about financial services here, which are on the domain side. Uh, Now, this is the piece of knowledge which has kind of, large part has remained unchanged over the years. So, if you build knowledge in any of these domains, so that is something which sticks with you. It doesn't get, totally refreshed after every 5 years. So, that is a good point. And there will obviously be always need of finance, which so and so once you learn that knowledge base of finance, I think there are no dearth of job opportunity. So that is one point which I have to make. So to answer the gentleman's question, it's a good area to be in. Uh, the second part of this is that now any disruption or any new opportunities comes actually uh, in the intersection point of two fields. Uh, and to just to elaborate it, so for example, if I know IT and I know biology, so there is a field which is related to IT and which is related to biology, which is called bioinformatics. Now, in IT, there is a competition, relatively more competition. In biology, there is a relatively more competition. But in the intersection of the field, which is bioinformatics, there is less competition because a person needs to know both IT and biology in order to basically play there. Similarly, in finance is a good field. There will be a competition because it's a pure field. IT also is now a pure field. There will be a competition, but in the intersection of it, which is fintech, there will be lesser competition and there is more area of basically more opportunity to innovate in fintech. So to answer his question, finance is a good field to be in. Fintech also is a good field to be in because that leverages the IT field, which he will be learning in the graduation, and then the finance, which he can learn in the MBA, and then fintech can be the area.
Great. I'm sure Dilnawaz has got his answer. So, thank you, Mr. Srivastav. We are grateful for your time to share your thoughts and experiences, and I'm sure this has inspired our students to aspire great deeds in education and industry. So, and it is going to go a long way to the students, giving them more clarity on what they should focus on. So, thank you so much for such a wonderful session.
Thanks. I mean, I enjoyed giving the session. Thanks, Priyanka. Thanks,
You're
everyone, for
welcome.
listening.
So, dear all, I hope you all have enjoyed the session. We'll be sending you the relevant links, like links to webinar recording, along with the feedback forms within 24 hours from now. And you shall also be receiving an e-certificate for your participation within a week. I would also like to update you that we'll have our next webinar of Career Series 2020 on 4th of August on the topic Smart Connected World, and we'll be sharing its registration details today. So stay tuned with us. Thank you everyone for joining today. Don't forget to subscribe to NIT on YouTube and Facebook so as to get latest updates. We hope to see you again next time in the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
I'm from TCS.
I'm from Wipro.
We are from NIET.
Join number one ranked institute